HOA posted my medical info on Facebook, finds out I run the state's cybercrime unit. That's how my story began 1 year ago, when Karen, our power-hungry HOA president, illegally shared my cancer diagnosis on social media to shame me for installing a wheelchair ramp. Her face when she discovered I led the state cybercrime unit was priceless. Her conviction for privacy violations should have been the end of our saga. But today, I received surveillance footage of my family with a chilling message. Privacy. Works both ways, James. 1 year is long enough to plan revenge. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, you're about to witness the most dangerous case of my career, because this time, it's personal. They said Karen moved across the country after serving 6 months probation and paying hefty fines. The cybersecurity legislation sparked by my case, nicknamed the Karen Act, strengthened privacy protections nationwide. My cancer went into remission, our neighborhood transformed from a place of fear to one of community, and life moved forward. At least that's what we thought. The anonymous email arrived at exactly 3:27 p.m. yesterday, the precise moment Karen's conviction was announced 1 year ago. The footage showed my home from multiple angles, my wife Beth's workplace, and my daughter Emma's college campus. Whoever sent it had been watching us for months, and their digital fingerprints had been meticulously scrubbed. This wasn't amateur stalking, this was professional surveillance. I'm James Davis, and while I may have won the battle against our HOA tyrant, the war is far from over. Someone with technical skills rivaling my own has been tracking my family's every move, and the timing can't be coincidental. As I reviewed the footage late into the night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. How does it feel when someone else holds the power? Before I could trace it, the number disappeared completely. Not just blocked, but erased from the network. In 15 years of cyber investigations, I'd never seen anything like it. This morning brought something even more disturbing. Emma called in a panic. Someone had created fake social media accounts in her name, posting altered photos and fabricated stories designed to damage her reputation and academic standing. The accounts had been operating for months, slowly building credibility before launching their attack. When I checked my own professional profiles, I found similar infiltrations, subtle changes to my work history, manipulated timestamps on posts, and traces of someone methodically constructing a digital case against me. Someone wasn't just seeking revenge. They were systematically dismantling my life, my family, and my credibility using the very digital tools I'd mastered. The irony wasn't lost on me. After taking down Karen for violating my privacy, I now faced a far more sophisticated opponent who'd turned my own professional playbook against me. But they made one critical mistake. They came after my family. As I activated our emergency security protocols and called in favors from every contact in digital forensics, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just about revenge. Someone wanted to prove they were better than me at my own game. "Dad," Emma said, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is Karen, isn't it?" I wasn't sure. Karen had technical knowledge, motivation, and a grudge. But this level of sophistication suggested something bigger. Either Karen had acquired serious skills during her year away, or someone else was using her story as cover for something far more dangerous. Either way, the digital hunt was on, and this time my family's safety hung in the balance. I gathered my family in our living room, which I'd already swept for surveillance devices. Beth's nurse's training had kicked in. She was calm, methodical, helping Emma document every unauthorized post while I established secure communications with my team at the cybercrime unit. "The timing can't be a coincidence," Mike Johnson said, over our encrypted line. He'd been my second in command through the original Karen investigation and knew every detail. 1 year to the day since her sentencing. "The sophistication doesn't match Karen's skill set," I countered, studying the email headers. Her digital footprint during our investigation showed basic computer literacy, not advanced obfuscation techniques. This is professional grade. Emma looked up from her laptop. Dad, these fake accounts have my high school photos, ones that were never posted online. They have details about my schedule, my friends, even conversations I've had in private. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just digital surveillance. Someone had been physically watching my daughter. We're not staying here tonight, I decided, triggering our family's emergency relocation plan, something I'd created for my high-profile cases, never imagining we'd use it for ourselves. Pack essentials only. No electronics except the secure phones I'm giving you. 2 hours later, we checked into a hotel under aliases using cash. My state attorney general contact had arranged for plainclothes officers nearby, not close enough to identify us, but close enough to respond if needed. From this secure location, I could begin my counter-investigation without risking my family. Morning brought the first breakthrough. A forensic analysis of Emma's compromised accounts revealed a pattern in the attack code, a distinctive signature I recognized from previous cases. Gabriel Martinez, I murmured, staring at the screen. Mike looked over my shoulder, his expression darkening. The Black Orchid guy, I thought he was still in federal custody. Released 3 months ago, I replied, pulling up his file. Martinez was a former intelligence contractor we caught deploying surveillance malware for a private security firm 4 years ago. Expert in digital and physical surveillance, psychological operations, and identity manipulation. What's his connection? To Karen? Beth asked. The next piece clicked into place when we analyzed the financial records from Karen's case. 6 months ago, while still on probation, she'd made 3 large withdrawals totaling $75,000. More than enough to hire someone with Martinez's skills. She's outsourced her revenge, I explained. Karen provides the motive and local knowledge. Martinez provides the technical expertise. Emma frowned. But isn't he just implicating himself in another crime? Why would he risk going back to prison? Because this isn't just about money for him, I replied, remembering Martinez's trial. I was the lead witness that put him away. This is his revenge, too. By midday, we'd identified 3 more fake accounts targeting my professional reputation. One, posing as a grateful crime victim claiming I'd exchanged favors for case priority. Another suggesting I'd manipulated evidence in Karen's case. And a third implying I'd abused my position to persecute personal enemies. They're creating a narrative, Mike observed, setting you up as the real villain in the Karen story. What happened next confirmed our theory. Local news outlets received an anonymous tip containing doctored emails that appeared to show me discussing plans to target Karen before her Facebook post. The fake correspondence painted me as having a vendetta against her HOA leadership, with the medical privacy violation merely providing convenient justification. The story hadn't broken yet. My relationships with journalists had bought us time. But the clock was ticking. A coordinated attack on this scale needed a response in kind. We need to draw them out, I decided. Martinez is too smart to confront directly, but Karen has always had a fundamental weakness. Her ego, Beth said, understanding immediately. I nodded. She can't resist public validation. We crafted a carefully worded post for the neighborhood community page, one suggesting that while Karen had made mistakes, her concerns about HOA governance had merit, and the new board was considering reinstating some of her policies. The implicit rehabilitation of her reputation was bait she wouldn't be able to resist. The response came faster than expected. Within hours, a new account under the name Truth Prevails posted a lengthy rebuttal, filled with specific details. Only Karen would know about board meetings and private conversations. The writing style matched her previous posts perfectly. "Got you," I whispered, as my team traced the connection to a coffee shop 3 miles away. Surveillance footage from the cafe's security cameras showed Karen herself, hair dyed brown and wearing glasses, but unmistakable nonetheless. She wasn't across the country starting fresh. She was here directing this campaign from the shadows. What we didn't expect was the man sitting across from her, Daniel Wilson, the former vice president of our HOA board, the same man who had publicly denounced Karen after my case broke. It's bigger than revenge, I realized, studying their body language. They're working together. But why involve Martinez? What's their end game? The answer arrived that evening in the form of a community-wide email announcing an emergency meeting to address disturbing new evidence of corruption within our current HOA leadership and the state cybercrime unit. The sender, Daniel Wilson, presenting himself as a whistleblower concerned about abuse of power. They're trying to retake control of the HOA, Beth said. But that doesn't explain the scale of this attack or why they'd risk federal charges. Emma, who'd been quietly analyzing financial records from the old HOA board, suddenly sat up straight. Dad, I think I found something. The old HOA had a reserve fund of over $2 million for community improvements. 3 months before Karen's conviction, most of it disappeared into a complex web of transfers. Pieces started falling into place. Karen and Daniel hadn't just been running an authoritarian HOA, they'd been embezzling funds. My privacy case had accidentally uncovered their scheme before they could cover their tracks. Now they needed to discredit me and retake control to manipulate the financial records before anyone noticed. The attack on our family isn't just revenge, I told my team. It's a desperate attempt at self-preservation. As we prepared our counter-offensive, my secure phone buzzed with an alert. Our home security system had detected an intruder. Live footage showed a figure in black methodically placing something in our bedroom, living room, and kitchen. Martinez, Mike confirmed after running facial recognition. He's planting something. Evidence, I concluded. They're setting up a physical component to their digital frame job. We had to move fast. The community meeting was scheduled for tomorrow evening. Enough time for whatever Martinez had planted to be discovered by authorities. If that happened, any evidence we presented would look like desperate deflection from a guilty man. But confronting them directly would be playing into their hands. We needed to flip their script, using their own methods against them. As a career investigator, I knew the most dangerous moment in any operation is when the perpetrator believes they've won. Let them think they've succeeded, I told my team. A plan forming. In fact, let's help them succeed even faster. Beth looked concerned. You want to accelerate their plan? James, that's incredibly risky. It's the only way, I replied, already drafting a message that would appear to come from a journalist requesting comment on the emerging scandal. We need them to move before they're fully ready, to force them into the open where we can control the situation. As I hit send, I knew we were initiating the most dangerous phase of this deadly game, deliberately provoking people who had already demonstrated they would stop at nothing to protect themselves and destroy us. Emma, I need you to contact every neighbor who defended us during the original Karen incident, I instructed. We'll need witnesses we can trust at this meeting. My daughter nodded, her expression resolute. Already on it, Dad. Karen messed with the wrong family, twice. The community center was packed, standing room only, just like the emergency meeting a year ago. This time, however, I wasn't the respected victim leading a community revival. Thanks to the coordinated digital and media campaign, suspicious glances followed me as Beth, Emma, and I found seats in the back. Daniel Wilson stood at the podium, his expression grave and righteous. Thank you all for coming tonight, he began. What I'm about to share will be difficult to hear, but as your former HOA vice president and a concerned citizen, I cannot stay silent any longer. The lights dimmed as a projector displayed the first of the doctored emails, showing my supposed conspiracy against Karen. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. James Davis, who presented himself as a victim last year, had actually been using his position at the cybercrime unit to target Karen Simpson long before she ever posted about his medical condition. More fabricated evidence appeared on screen. Bank statements showing suspicious transfers into my account, time-stamped surveillance photos of meetings that never happened, and testimonials from anonymous whistleblowers claiming I'd pressured them to provide damaging information about Karen. Furthermore, Daniel continued, his voice heavy with manufactured concern, a search of Mr. Davis's home earlier today revealed hard drives containing manipulated evidence from multiple cases, including Karen's. On cue, Martinez, now dressed in an ill-fitting suit and presenting himself as a digital forensics consultant, took the stage with the devices he'd planted in our home. The integrity of these drives is verified, he claimed, holding up one of the planted hard drives. They contain irrefutable proof that Mr. Davis falsified evidence in his vendetta against Ms. Simpson, who was simply trying to enforce HOA regulations. Karen herself appeared next, entering from a side door to scattered applause and confusion. Her performance was masterful, humble, tearful, the picture of a wronged woman seeking only truth, not vengeance. I never wanted to return, she said, dabbing at her eyes. But when Daniel showed me what he'd discovered, I knew I had to stand up not just for myself, but for all of you who were misled. As she spoke, I noticed key members of the current HOA board being escorted from the room by individuals I recognized as Martinez's associates. The coup was happening simultaneously on multiple fronts. The community, already disillusioned by political divisions and ever-changing narratives in the wider world, seemed paralyzed with uncertainty. Even neighbors who had supported me last year now looked conflicted, unsure what to believe. Beth squeezed my hand. "It's time," she whispered. I stood, and immediately 2 of Martinez's men moved to intercept me. Karen smiled, believing this was the moment of her triumph, me being publicly discredited and potentially arrested based on their planted evidence. "Before anyone draws conclusions," I said calmly, "I believe we should see all the evidence, not just a carefully curated selection." Martinez stepped forward. "The evidence has been presented, Mr. Davis. Your attempts to—" "Actually," came a new voice from the entrance, "the evidence is still arriving." Mike Johnson entered, flanked by agents from the FBI Cybercrime Division and representatives from the State Attorney General's office. The federal agents moved quickly to secure the planted hard drives while others detained Martinez's associates. Karen's triumphant expression faltered as she realized something had gone catastrophically wrong with her plan. Daniel began inching toward the side exit, but found his path blocked by state police officers. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his righteous mask slipping. "You can't just interrupt a community meeting." Mike addressed the room. "This isn't just a community meeting. Based on electronic surveillance legally authorized by federal warrant, we have reason to believe this event is the culmination of a conspiracy involving witness tampering, evidence fabrication, cyber-stalking, identity theft, and embezzlement." Karen lunged for the podium. "He's lying. James Davis is the criminal here. We have proof." But as she reached for the controls to display more of their fabricated evidence, the projector switched to a different image. Karen and Daniel in the coffee shop, then Martinez planting devices in our home, followed by bank records showing the missing $2 million funneled through shell companies they controlled. The room erupted in chaos. In the confusion, Karen made a desperate dash for the exit, shoving aside a neighbor who tried to block her path. Martinez, recognizing the operation had failed, immediately surrendered, a professional cutting his losses. But Daniel Wilson grabbed Emma, pressing something against her side. "Nobody moves," he shouted. "I still have access to the accounts." I can transfer everything back. This all goes away if you just let me walk out of here." My daughter's eyes met mine, frightened but determined. The room froze as the situation escalated from fraud exposure to hostage crisis in seconds. Everything we'd planned, all our careful counterintelligence, hadn't prepared us for Daniel's desperate final move. The community center fell deadly silent. Agents who had drawn weapons now held their positions, unwilling to risk Emma's safety. Beth's hand clenched mine with crushing force as we faced our worst nightmare. "Easy, Daniel," I said, keeping my voice level despite the terror coursing through me. "You're making a bad situation worse." "Worse?" He laughed, the sound brittle and unhinged. "How exactly does this get worse for me, James? Financial crimes? That's just paperwork, but this..." He tightened his grip on Emma. "This gives me leverage." Karen had stopped at the exit, torn between escape and whatever loyalty she felt toward her co-conspirator. Her eyes darted between Daniel, the federal agents, and the clear path to the parking lot. "Karen," Daniel called out, "tell them about the offshore accounts. Tell them we can put everything back." But Karen Simpson, who had always put self-preservation above all else, made her choice. With one last glance at Daniel, she slipped out the door. The betrayal registered on Daniel's face, his expression hardening as he realized she had abandoned him. "Typical," he muttered, then refocused on the room. "Nobody follows her. Not yet." Mike caught my eye from across the room, his subtle hand, signal conveying what I already knew. Crisis negotiators were minutes away, but these first moments were critical. As a cyber investigator, I'd received hostage situation training, but I'd never imagined using those skills when my own daughters. "Life hung in the balance. Daniel," I said carefully, "you haven't hurt anyone physically yet. That matters in court." "Court?" He gave another harsh laugh. "There's not going to be any court. Here's what's going to happen. I walk out of here with your daughter. When I'm clear, I'll send instructions for transferring access to certain accounts. Once that's done, she goes free and I disappear." Emma's eyes showed fear but also calculation. My daughter had grown up with a cybersecurity expert for a father. She knew better than anyone how to handle digital threats. Now she was applying that knowledge to her own survival, staying calm, observing, looking for opportunities. "Those offshore accounts Karen mentioned," I said, taking a careful step forward, which made Daniel tighten his grip on Emma. I stopped immediately. "The ones in the Caymans? The cybercrime unit froze them this morning." Doubt flickered across Daniel's face. "You're lying." "Operation Broken Trust," I continued. "Federal and international task force. Karen's coffee shop meetings with you triggered a surveillance operation 3 weeks ago. This was only partially true. We had identified offshore accounts, but they hadn't been frozen yet. We'd been building a stronger case." But Daniel's reaction confirmed their existence. "If the accounts are frozen," Daniel said, his voice wavering slightly, "then I have nothing to lose." "You have your freedom to lose," I countered. "Right now, this is still a situation you can survive. Prison time, yes, but a future afterward. If you hurt my daughter, there is no future, Daniel, you know that." Daniel's eyes darted around the room, counting the officers, evaluating his dwindling options. The hand holding what I now could see was a knife against Emma's side trembled slightly. "Everyone except her parents out," he suddenly demanded. "Now, or I swear I'll—" "Dad," Emma interrupted, her voice remarkably steady. "Tell him about protocol. Nightshade." I froze. Protocol Nightshade wasn't real. It was something Emma and I had invented years ago as part of her cybersecurity education. A fictional last resort countermeasure that would supposedly erase all digital traces of a person. We'd created it as a thought experiment, a way to discuss digital footprints and privacy. But Emma's deliberate mention of it now told me she was creating a distraction. Protocol what? Daniel's attention shifted fractionally, his grip on Emma loosening just enough. "It's already activated," I said, picking up on Emma's strategy. The moment you grabbed her, facial recognition systems identified you, and automated systems began systematically erasing your digital identity. Daniel's expression showed confusion. That's not possible. 30 seconds ago, I continued improvising. Your credit score dropped to 0. Your bank accounts are being emptied. Your social media presence is being scrubbed. In approximately 3 minutes, Daniel Wilson will cease to exist in any database in the country. It was complete fiction, but delivered with absolute conviction, and, to someone who had seen the technological capabilities of the cybercrime unit, it sounded just plausible enough. Daniel's attention was now fully on me, trying to determine if I was bluffing. You can't do that. It's not legal. Protocol Nightshade operates in a legal gray area, Beth added, catching on, developed after the national security breaches of 2022, authorized for use only in direct threats against federal cybersecurity personnel or their families. Emma, sensing Daniel's distraction and his slightly loosened grip, made her move. Using the self-defense techniques she'd learned years ago, she suddenly dropped her weight, simultaneously driving her elbow hard into his solar plexus and twisting away from the knife. Daniel gasped, doubling over as Emma broke free. Federal agents swarmed forward, securing him before he could recover. The relief of seeing Emma safe nearly buckled my knees, but there was no time for reunion. Karen, I reminded everyone, she's getting away. Mike was already coordinating with outside teams, but Karen had several minutes head start. Vehicle checkpoints are established, he confirmed. She won't get far. Emma rushed into our arms, the three of us holding each other in a fierce embrace. I knew you'd catch on, Dad, she whispered. Protocol Nightshade for the win. Over her. Shoulder, I watched as Daniel was handcuffed and read his rights, the fight gone out of him. Martinez was already being escorted to a separate vehicle, his face a mask of professional resignation. We still need to find Karen, I said, reluctantly breaking our family embrace. She has account access and evidence we need. The community, members who remained after Daniel's outburst, gathered around us, offering support and apologies for doubting. Mrs. Johnson, our current HOA president, approached with tears in her eyes. James, I'm so sorry. When those emails surfaced, I didn't know what to believe. That was exactly their strategy, I assured her. Create enough doubt to divide us. My secure phone buzzed with an update. A neighbor had spotted Karen rushing toward the community's rear exit, a rarely used service road that wouldn't have police. Checkpoints. She's heading for the old maintenance tunnel, one of the longtime residents explained when I shared this information. It comes out near the shopping center on Lincoln Avenue, used to be part of the storm drain system before the renovation. This was exactly the kind of local knowledge that made Karen dangerous and explained why she'd partnered with Daniel and Martinez. She knew every escape route, every hiding place in our community. I know that tunnel, Emma said. My friends, and I found it years ago. It's partially collapsed about halfway through. There's only one narrow passage. If she doesn't know about the collapse, she'll be trapped, I finished, already moving toward the exit. Mike, get a team to the shopping center exit. Beth, stay with Emma. My wife's expression hardened. Not a chance, James. We do this together. Emma stays with the federal agents. After confirming Emma would be properly protected, Beth and I joined the pursuit team heading for the maintenance tunnel. Karen had only a few minutes head start, but in the growing darkness, that might be enough if she reached the tunnel before us. The service road ended at an overgrown culvert hidden behind years of neglected bushes. The rusty grate covering the entrance had been pulled aside. Karen had definitely come this way. She can't have gotten far, I said, as we illuminated the dank passage with our flashlights. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the air smelled of mold and stagnation. This tunnel hasn't been maintained in years. We moved carefully through the passage, aware that Karen might be waiting in ambush. The beam of my flashlight caught something on the ground, Karen's designer handbag, likely abandoned to allow faster movement. "The collapse is just ahead," Beth whispered, pointing to where the ceiling dipped dangerously low. If she made it through there... A sudden scuffling sound ahead confirmed our suspicions. Karen had reached the collapsed section and was struggling to navigate it. "Karen Simpson," I called out, my voice echoing in the confined space. "Federal agents have secured both exits. Daniel and Martinez are in custody. This ends now." "It ends when I say it ends." Her voice came back, tight with panic and exertion. "You've taken everything from me, James. My reputation, my community, my future. You took those things from yourself," Beth replied calmly. "When you chose to violate medical privacy laws, when you embezzled community funds, when you targeted a family with a sick father." We reached the collapsed section and directed our flashlights through the narrow opening. Karen was visible on the other side, her once immaculate appearance now filthy from the tunnel, her disguise abandoned in her haste. "The agents at the other end know you're coming," I told her. "There's nowhere left to run." For a moment, Karen seemed to deflate, the reality of her situation sinking in. Then, with surprising speed, she pulled something from her pocket, a small device I recognized immediately as a data drive. "I still have copies of everything," she said, a desperate edge to her voice. "All the financial records, account numbers, offshore transfers, everything that implicates Daniel, Martinez, and others." "Others?" Beth asked. Karen's smile was brittle. "You think we managed this by ourselves? There are people on your own team, James. People who looked the other way when Daniel and I moved the money. People who provided Martinez with access to your security systems." I kept my expression neutral, though her words sent a chill through me. A mole in my own unit was certainly possible. It would explain how they'd obtained certain information. "That drive is evidence," I said, extending my hand through the narrow passage. "Turn it over, and that cooperation will be noted in your case." Karen held the drive just out of reach. "Immunity, full immunity, or this drive and everything on it disappears forever." "You know I can't make that deal," I replied. "But if what you're saying about corruption in my unit is true, that information has significant value to prosecutors." Karen hesitated, clearly calculating her remaining options. The sound of approaching footsteps from the other end of the tunnel made her decision more urgent. The agents Mike had sent to the shopping center exit were closing in. "Time's up, Karen," Beth said quietly. "Make the right choice for once." In the beam of our flashlights, I could see the exact moment Karen's resistance crumbled. With a defeated gesture, she placed the drive in my outstretched hand. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her voice suddenly small. "It started with just fudging some numbers for the community landscaping budget. Then Daniel suggested the reserve fund might be our opportunity to finally get ahead. Before I knew it, before you knew it, you were conspiring with a professional criminal to terrorize my family." I finished for her, securing the drive in an evidence pouch. "Actions have consequences, Karen. That was true a year ago, and it's true now." As the agents from the shopping center end reached us, taking Karen into custody, Beth and I exchanged a glance that contained volumes. The nightmare wasn't completely over. If Karen was telling the truth about moles in my unit, we had another investigation ahead. But the immediate threat to our family had been neutralized. We emerged from the tunnel into the cool night air, where Mike was waiting with an update. Daniel had already begun cooperating, offering information in exchange for leniency. Martinez, ever the professional, had said nothing beyond requesting his lawyer. "Emma?" I asked immediately. "Safe, and probably telling the entire federal cyber team exactly how she came up with Protocol Nightshade," Mike assured me with a slight smile. Smart kid you've got there, James. As Karen was placed in a federal vehicle, our eyes met one last time. The woman who had terrorized our neighborhood, violated my privacy, and then orchestrated an elaborate revenge plot finally spoke the words I never expected to hear. I'm sorry, James, for everything. Whether her remorse was genuine or simply another performance didn't matter. What mattered was that her campaign against my family was finally, truly over. 1 month later, our neighborhood gathered once again in the community center, not for emergency damage control, but for celebration. Tables laden with potluck dishes lined the walls. Children played freely without fear of HOA violations, and neighbors who had once been divided now mingled comfortably, sharing stories and rebuilding connections. The financial investigation had revealed the full extent of Karen and Daniel's embezzlement. Over 3 years, they had diverted more than $2.3 million meant for community improvements into offshore accounts, shell companies, and luxury purchases carefully disguised as maintenance expenses. With their guilty pleas and the recovery of most funds, the community was now democratically deciding how to use the returned money. The playground renovation is winning so far, Mrs. Johnson told me, checking the community vote tally, followed closely by the scholarship fund for neighborhood kids. Emma, home from college for the weekend, was showing younger children how to check for basic security issues on their devices, turning her traumatic experience into educational outreach. Beth was coordinating a new community health initiative, using her nursing expertise to establish wellness checks for our elderly neighbors. The investigation into potential moles in my unit continued, but Karen's information had already led to 2 arrests and a complete security overhaul. Rather than destroying my team, the crisis had ultimately strengthened it. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Martinez had received a 15-year sentence without possibility of parole, given his prior convictions and the severity of his actions against my family. Daniel was cooperating extensively, likely facing 7 to 10 years. Karen's sentencing was scheduled for next month, with prosecutors recommending 5 to 7 years, given her secondary role and eventual cooperation. As I put my phone away, Mike approached with a small gift-wrapped box. "From the team," he said. "A little something to mark your official return." Inside was a custom desk plaque reading James Davis, Director, State Cybercrime Unit, because even cybersecurity experts need security sometimes. The humor was welcome. A sign that we were healing, finding our way back to normalcy while carrying the lessons learned. "Speech," called several neighbors, urging me toward the small podium at the front of the room. Standing before my community, I took a moment to absorb the scene. Faces that had shown doubt now showed trust restored, stronger than before because it had been tested. "A year ago, we gathered here to rebuild our community after discovering how power could be abused," I began. "Today, we gather to celebrate something more important, our resilience. Not just against HOA tyrants and cyber criminals, but against the fear, doubt, and division they tried to create among us." I raised my glass of sparkling cider, still avoiding alcohol during my cancer recovery. "Here's to privacy respected, community treasured, and justice served. But most importantly, here's to neighbors becoming friends, and friends becoming family." As glasses raised across the room, I caught Beth's eye, then Emma's, feeling a profound gratitude that transcended the ordeal we'd survived. Some victories aren't measured in convictions or recovered funds, but in families made stronger, communities built tighter, and futures secured against those who would threaten them. The HOA posted my medical info on Facebook and found out I ran the state cybercrime unit. But what they never understood was that true power doesn't come from control, coercion, or revenge. It comes from community.